Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending where you are in the world. It's morning here in London, and our speakers are all from Europe, so I'll say good morning to them. It's great to have you with us. My name is Donald Taylor. I'm the chair of OEB, and it's my job to try to say what I need to say and get off the virtual stage as quickly as possible. My job is to introduce our chair for the session today and to say welcome to everybody for coming along. So thank you very much for attending today. As the chair of OEB, it's my real pleasure to be part of this series of webinars we do, which extends the reach of the conference as widely geographically and over time as possible. What we're looking to do is to make sure that you're up to date with the latest events and discussions and debates, and this is undoubtedly a really important one. It's about the nurturing of academic excellence in an era of AI, when we're challenged with the idea that original thought can be found in large language models, it can be found in robots, in machinery, in code. Can it? And if it can, what do we do? How do we make sure our students are able to turn in great work and to foster their own creativity rather than relying on generic AI to create it for them? That's not my area of expertise. I'll hand it over to the panel in a second to debate the issues and to bring you expertise and to interact with you. It's my job to say, I hope very much that you'll have a great session today. And also to say that we have the 30th edition, I can't believe it, but the 30th edition of OEB, the conference taking place in Berlin on the 27th to the 29th of November this year. And I do hope that I will see you there. All right, now with that, I think that's probably enough from me. You're not here to listen to Don Taylor. You're here to listen to our fabulous panel under the magnificent chairship of our chair, Krista Sommer. So I'll hand it over to Krista Sommer of Turnitin, who's our chair today. Krista, over to you.
Thank you very much, Donald, for that nice introduction. I wish I was in Berlin actually this week with all the football going on, rather than November, but oh well. Before we get started with our panel discussion, which I hope will be very formative for everyone, I do want to make sure everyone is awake, engaged, and ask if everyone can open their chat. And before we get started, I would like to ask if you can share whether you're already using AI tools like ChatGPT, and if so, how and for what purpose. At the end of the conversation, we hopefully have some time for Q&A as well. So if you have any questions you would like us to answer at the end, please put them in the Q&A section rather than the chat, because they will hopefully very soon get lost in the chat. So before we get started with our conversation, I will do some introductions, starting with introducing myself and Turnitin. So my name is Krista Sommers. I'm originally from the Netherlands, but I live in the UK at the moment. I've been working for Turnitin for 7 years now, so it's been quite a while. To introduce Turnitin, Turnitin was founded 26 years ago. We had our 25th anniversary last year. And our mission is to ensure the integrity of global education and research. And we provide institutions with tools to uphold their academic standards. But more importantly, and hopefully we can have that conversation today as well, we provide also tools to actually engage with students regarding this topic and regarding this process, as we find the student is really central in all of this, and it's very much about teaching and educating the students the right way rather than policing the outcomes. So I would first like to hand it over to Alexander to introduce himself and his role within the institution, and after Ali as well.
Great. Thank you, Krista. Thanks, first of all, for the invitation and organizing it. And so I'm really looking forward to our discussion. And well, my role is I'm an associate professor of applied science at the Wittenborg University of Applied Science in the Netherlands. We also have locations in Apeldoorn, Amsterdam, as well as in Munich in Germany. And well, we are a very international and actually, in fact, the most international business school in the Netherlands. Yeah, we have a very diverse force of colleagues and also a very diverse group of students. Yeah, so we have many nationalities there, and main language is of course English then together. And well, and I'm teaching strategic management, marketing, and business planning, business management. And of course, AI has a certain, well, of course, has an impact on our teaching, the education, as well as how we are, I would say, steering into the future. And of course, there are a lot of discussions on this level. So that's why I'm really looking forward to that, because of course, I implement AI every day already in my teaching, in my examination. And of course, I would like to get inspired as well by my colleagues to take out the most of that.
Thank you, Alex. Turning it to you, Ali.
Thank you, Krista. Hi, everyone. Just lovely being here, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion. I think it's going to be very entertaining for myself personally, just as much perhaps as for you. I'm the Chief Innovation and Entrepreneurship Officer at Contractor University. Contractor University is #1 private university in Germany, one of the most international universities in Europe. We have students from like 130 countries, very diverse. Now we're part of a bigger ecosystem that entails contractor capital, contractor technology, and contractor knowledge. So my role is actually a lot around innovation. I teach entrepreneurship, but focused on learning design. In a nutshell, I like to say I make learning and education awesome, because it's about time we do that. And that's really my focus, which involves a lot of using out of the box techniques, but also implementing AI in different areas. And today we'll be diving a bit into how innovative we can get with education, and at what point does it maybe cross the boundaries of our academic integrity, and what point do we start questioning it, and where should we embrace it? Thank you for having me, Kristen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ali. I will stop sharing my screen now because I think it's nicer to have us fully in screen. I'm going to start with a question which is going to be very open and broad. So I'm going to ask both Alex and Ali just give me a couple of sentences as we dive deeper into the conversation. So the question is, how has AI disrupted the education landscape overall? And before we go to Ali on this question, I would also like to hear the view of the audience. So we'll be launching a poll to ask you that same question. So Ali, in a couple of words or sentences, what is your view on how AI disrupted the educational landscape?
Well, I personally think it's disrupted education in a very beautiful way, because it's allowed us to look at education from a more human perspective. So then a couple of things. We've gone from shift of maybe memorization to application, which is very necessary, as I think humans are meant to create, and we've gone from Stone Ages to where we are now because we applied stuff. We're not memorizing stuff. Yes, memory is essential. Another thing it's done is the landscape's also changed a lot in terms of essays and theses and project writing to project-based learning. And that's also, again, very important as we go into the future, how things are executed. Okay? It's also done one beautiful thing, which I absolutely love, because my focus in my work and what I do around ethic is allowing people to enjoy what they do. It's given ownership to students of their learning. And I think that is very important, because previously it's always been the professor would come to class and would disseminate the knowledge and share it, very much like ceremonial offerings in churches or mosques, or when a priest would come and share the stuff. But I think we need to be able to disseminate and democratize knowledge, and AI has done that. It's changed ownership from teachers only to teachers and students. It's now co-creation of how learning is happening. And lastly, and one thing I'll dive into a bit later as well, first principle thinking. It's allowed somewhat to some level, at least in the area that I work in, people to look at first principle thinking, and that's really important. I think most academics would agree with me, and one of the few things they would agree with me on is first principle thinking should be necessary for development and growth of things.
Thank you, Ali. Now I'm going to ask you, Alex, the same question, but then maybe already kind of a follow-up question in there as well, kind of typing a little bit more specific. So how has AI disrupted the educational landscape? But how has AI also impacted the student interaction in the classroom?
Yeah, I would like to link here on Ali, because Ali just mentioned Stone Age. Yeah, even if we don't go back to the Stone Age, so when we go back into a more like classical lecture, and I was reading reading from a book. Yeah, and of course this comes back in a time where books were really expensive. Yeah, and actually I'm old enough to remember this as well. Yeah, where really you had only like two issues in the library, and you had to queue up to get the one book, or the second book. Yeah, and then you were writing down your notes. Yeah, and then you were really lucky when you got the one book. And of course also when the lecturer, he was reading, and going back earlier when really a lot of students didn't have books. Yeah, so reading from the book and you made your notes. Yeah, and Ali just mentioned democratized knowledge. Yeah, this is actually what we did already with making books more accessible. Yeah, and of course, but still, so when I was a student back in the early 90s, yeah, I still had to buy books, yeah, which was very expensive, yeah. Or when I had to go to a library, it was really like university library had like 2 or 3 of these books, yeah, and then I had to wait on the waiting list, yeah. Or these books were not allowed at all to take them home with you. So you were sitting in a library and you had to find your right sources, your citations, yeah. So in these days, yeah. So when I wrote in my first thesis, yeah. I think our lecturer and supervisor was happy at all if we put in some references. Yeah, and of course this changed a lot now. This is also now how AI, but also before Google Scholar and all the other access of journals, online libraries affected. Yeah, so today when students hand in a seminar papers, then we expect there should be plenty of references in there, and you have to compare journal A with journal B, and the one researcher with the other researcher. So it's because it's so easy to access all this knowledge. And I think now when we think about the Google time, yeah, so going through Google Scholar, finding in online libraries various articles, various journals articles from a research, and I can compare reference. And I think now AI did something in addition on this one, because now it puts me as a student in the position that I can now, for example, take 20 different articles, and I can start reading them, but then ChatGPT can help me, for example, and I can say, okay, look, here are my 20 articles, please can you compare them, yeah, and please can you find for me exactly the things I'm looking for. So basically, can you Google it for me, yeah? So which means something what would have taken me like 20 years earlier, ages, yeah, to find now the other author who confirms the study. And I had to go through the library and look through this. This I can now do in probably 20 to 30 seconds, yeah. And but then of course not blindly copying, because we know that sometimes AI might go wild, yeah. But it makes me also more efficient as a student, as a researcher, as a lecturer. And I think this is already following up, Krista, what you asked. How did it impact, yeah, the students' daily life and the daily life of lecturers? I think this is already the things we have now tool what helps us to be much more efficient than before, if we use it right. So this is, of course, a skill we have to do.
So that was my next question, right? It makes more efficient, everything is more accessible, but how do we foster that original thinking with students?
So this is now a little bit of a problem, because ghostwriting is always an issue. So as a ghostwriting, yeah, because of course, well, already before there was ghostwriting. Yeah, so we know at larger universities there are researchers when you look into how many of the seminar papers were actually written by the student. Yeah, and of course then there's a certain percentage, yeah, that students ask the sister, the brother, can you write it for me? I had it in. So ghostwriting always was an issue and always will be. I think ghostwriting also probably got a little bit more cheaper now and more democratized there, because it's now easier access. However, what we have to do is, yeah, there comes what Ali just mentioned about academic integrity and also quality. I think it's a skill set, yeah, that we learn, yeah, together with the students, that AI is not here to replace you and to replace your own creativity. It's here to support you. So, which means, yeah, when you have your idea and you have already a topic and you want to write about, then AI is there to help you to structure your thoughts, to probably give you additional perspective, to help you in research, yeah, to help you to find sources, to probably compare sources, to probably create a table for you, comparing study A with study B. But it's not there to do your complete work. So it should be your original thinking. And I think we should probably discuss with students more about ethics and morality, and to say, well, you can use this kind of tool, but you cannot just ask the tool to do a complete job and to handle it as your own work. So treat it like your good friend, yeah, like your study buddy. Ask your study buddy for advice, but don't ask him or her to please write my paper, and I will handle it as my own. So, and this is, I think, the angle I would look at it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Something, if I may,
Go
I'd
ahead.
like to add something to that. When we talk about original thinking, we should also reflect back. Is this only an issue now with AI, or has it been an issue before? I mean, if just for the audience and maybe for us as well, how many times maybe at school have you copied someone else's homework? I don't know about you, but I've done that, right? At some point I dropped out of school because it was not working for me, but the point was I felt it was very restrictive. And we need to really look at it. Is the issue generally with AI now that it's harder to identify original thinking, copy, or is that what, should the question be more around identification of the sources of it, or rather have people's mindsets change? Because I think original thinking is rather mindset focused, and that's when I mentioned first principle thinking, and it's really something important here, especially with AI now more than ever. We need to teach our students, our faculty, our colleagues to look at things from first principle fundamentals, challenge the assumptions. I think with AI more than ever, when things come in and ChatGPT gives you a result after even a prompt, any large language model, challenge the assumption first, break down the problem, and then think from scratch. This way, you're bringing in original thinking. And I think what it does to do AI is like Alexander said, it's a great buddy to generate stuff, to have things on the go, to kind of give you a kickstart. But once it's giving you the kickstart, you should then utilize that and use your brain power to be able to put your input, your unique expertise, understanding of it. So it's really important, I think, to foster original thinking is to build the psychology around first principle thinking in students, that no matter what you're producing, we should look at things from the first principle, challenge the assumptions, think from scratch as the results are coming in. And I think this is one way we could foster more of this. Now, even before as well, I think it's always been lacking in education. Maybe Socratic times, it was always there quite a lot, something missed out on. But with AI, it needs to happen a lot more. This is how you, again, give ownership to the students. This is your magic wand. This is your stick. Utilize it. Don't, let it use you. And I love the term Alexander's used. It's a study buddy. It's a buddy. It's an assistant on your side to kind of assist you with things, not to conclude them for you. You should be the one making the conclusions.
And
But
Christopher,
Ali,
I'm sorry, Christopher, can I just add something to Ali, because it's just a nice fit. Ali just mentioned, from school level, I just remembered, when I was at high school, we had, luckily, my father had this like huge library with a whole series of lexicas. And at one point, I had to write something about nuclear fusion, and I took this just one by one word, from one of the books, But of course, I didn't know, in high school level, and lower level, I didn't know how to cite it properly, So I just copied it, but it was my handwriting, because I handed it in as a handwritten essay, and my teacher thought I'm a genius, because I know so much about fusion, nuclear fusion. So he thought I'm the next Albert Einstein, And then the next level, what I did is, because it was a drawing of, so I put a piece of paper on it. I was just copied the drawing, And then that was the only thing I referenced. I said, I got this from a book, And but I think that's the thing, because I was left as a pupil alone. I didn't know how to cite. So I thought, I read this in the book. I can write this. It's my handwriting, so I hand this in as my work, And that's probably also what we did when ChatGPT and the other AIs, when it came up. I think at a lot of universities, we left students a little bit alone, not knowing how to use it, So not telling them, because of course we were completely, a lot of institutions were completely overwhelmed, by how fast, it was there. So and then of course we also left the students alone because they were like really not transparent regulations. So, and because we were always behind the technology. So only now we're probably discussing more deeply about it. And a lot of universities now put regulations in place to help students and to tell them how to use it. Yeah, but it's basically just another development. Yeah, from the old books to Google Scholar and to cite your work. Yeah, not using Wikipedia, for example, as an academic reference. Yeah, and that's common knowledge among students. Yeah, that at Wikipedia you have a look, you can have a great quick overview about the topic, and then you dive more deeper into the topic, and then you can cite these sources. Yeah, but none of the students today will dare to cite Wikipedia anymore because they know everything can be used. Yeah, and I think the same mindset we need then for ChatGPT and AI. Yeah, that you say yes, it's a help. Yeah, but it's not the direct thing doing your job. Then, yeah.
Yeah. To round up this conversation a little bit about kind of the feedback and engagement with students, I want to open the next poll, but ask the same question to Ali, how he sees that in his institution. Has your institution adapted approach to student engagement and feedback in the light of AI? So have you already seen this shift, Ali, in your institution, that there's a different engagement needed with those students?
Yes, absolutely. So Construct University, our motto is constructing the future. So it'll almost be a fellowship us if we were not to not to see at least dive into a bit or test the waters of how we can utilize AI to some extent in academia. I know of several different professors' engagement at some level that have used AI to actually develop content with the students. So the class, they had a book that was that they were using, everything recommended by academia. And on the side, they decided, okay, we were very cool to see what it would be like to use AI, ChatGPT with the students. And the students developed their own book they would utilize for that class, while also comparing it with one of the recommended books from a very well-renowned author, already published, used across universities, I think it was from Oxford and whatnot. And then it kind of did a comparison of those and got the students to look at it and analyze what they thought was GPT from what he produced, what they thought was original from what was something completely produced by an author. And that was really fascinating because I saw this firsthand. I used to just crash these classes because I thought it was really cool when I found out one of the professors was doing it. And this is one of the examples of something we've encouraged. Professors are very open to see what they can do in different ways. Another shift has been to another way we've adapted to it is also in terms of marking. I know now there's a certain policies and restrictions set up with Certitude. You know, we have got the AI detector, and there's policies around that on what is accepted and what is not accepted. So with all of this, and again, touch back on what Alexander said, right? It's the citation issue, right? The issue is not someone's copying someone's work, but rather about, okay, are you giving sources? And are you identifying it and really making clear this is not your work? And that is always the tough part. And I think as an institution, we're still wrapping our head around on what is the best way to do it, while I suppose my main role as the innovation officer is to try and shake things up a bit. And I'm always sitting down with the academic and the operation side to see, okay, guys, I understand these are the policies, these are the restrictions, but what if we did this, right? And we're pushing and pushing a bit every day until I think we find a way that works. But then I think it has a lot to do with my own role, because Chief Innovation Officer, my role is to try and get more innovation in. And it would be, again, very foolish not to look at AI and how to do that. I can give a really good example from my personal classes. I teach entrepreneurship. I run an incubator and accelerator at the university. And we use AI quite heavily because over here, the focus is not on the content they're producing. The focus is on business models. The focus is on market analysis. The focus is on the way they're researching, user personas. And I highly encourage our teams and startups to use AI to help them with this, because at the end of the day, the product they're producing in the market is not going to be tested on whether they copied someone's work. All entrepreneurs copy someone's work and then build on top of that. So it's a very different field that I am teaching, and I suppose I have a lot of playing field to test different things out. Maybe not as much as maybe the other professors don't do as much, but one of the examples was these people using it. And this is one of the big shifts I've seen here. And again, I think with constructing the future, we're constantly pushing how we can move into this new era of tech. We're also, as I say, we're part of a bigger ecosystem with constructed technology, and they implement AI in our LLMs. We have our own personalized LLM, and our focus is how AI can be used to detect engagement in classes. That's something we are exploring currently, and that was interesting. So not only academic integrity, but rather, for example, we're all on this meeting. Is Alexander getting bored by the words I'm saying? And the AI would be able to tell that, and that was really cool. And it's something we're now experimenting with as well. And how accurate is that? It's quite early stages, but another example of something we as an institution are doing.
Right. And you both already touched about ethics, right? There's some part of this about how to use AI ethically. We've already had the conversation, right? Cheating is not something new. It's changing, right? We used to copy something from a book. Now we might be asking AI to do so. So Alex, how does that work in your classroom and your conversations with students? How have those conversations about the topic of academic integrity changed? And what has the institution might have changed in regards to their kind of academic integrity policy or standards?
Yeah, I think there are now two areas. So first of all, AI is of course here to stay, yeah, and not to ignore it, yeah. That's of course not an option. And to go back to like pen and paper exams, yeah, like education 1.0 is of course also not an option. Yeah, of course we still have in general in the academic landscape there are a lot of pen and paper exams, yeah, because also needed sometimes that you just learn something and you replicate knowledge, yeah. But of course, pen and paper it's like I would say on a lower level. But as soon as you go on a higher level of education, of course, you want to have like applied knowledge. Yeah, what Ali just mentioned before. Yeah, it's not just like replicating knowledge. Yeah, and then of course the issue is of course then you always talk about write paper about this topic, about that topic. Yeah. So the earlier days of ChatGPT, of course, I got a lot of papers, probably all of us got, yeah, completely written by ChatGPT. And then you could spot it immediately, yeah. Then later, students got a little bit more sophisticated. They started to sprinkle some references there, yeah. And but I think it was because it was a new tool, yeah, and it was also no framework, no guidance, yeah. So what I do now with my students, yeah, I said embrace it. So use it, yeah, but make it clear that you use it. Yeah. So, for example, at the end of your paper, you add a table where you say, "These are my prompts I was using." Yeah. So I was using ChatGPT for structuring my topic. I was using ChatGPT to analyze, for example, interview data. I was using ChatGPT to do a comparison between two studies, but then I commented it. So, which means I tell students very clearly it's a help you can use. Yeah. The other thing is we also changed some of the examination types. Yeah, into that we said it's not only a kind of written paper, you have to present it as well. So which means we have a presentation of your work, and there will be also a Q&A session about your work, and which means you are very transparent about that you use AI for structuring your paper, for proofreading it, for probably rephrasing some areas, yeah, sorting your data, but you are the master of the knowledge, and this is actually what you prove on a presentation with an academic discussion. So some areas we changed in this area, in this field, that we say it's a paper plus it's a presentation with an oral examination to make sure that you really are the author and not just ChatGPT, but you can really defend your knowledge. Yeah. The second thing is, for example, in a marketing course, I said, well, we go away from the classical write a marketing plan because ChatGPT will do this for you and probably might even do it better. But we now go into this area. Well, we still look at the marketing plan. You still write something about the marketing plan, but then there are various ways of examination and your creativity expression. So, for example, what we did is we used different mediums. We asked, well, please produce a video. So promote a product on a video. how would you address your audience? Yeah. So choose your target audience. Yeah. Choose your product, and then produce a short video, and then see how many likes do you get. Yeah. How many followers do you get, and then comment on this. And for the text and for the arguments, yeah, please go back to ChatGPT. Write down your arguments you would like to do for this type of product, for this kind of sport show, and then select on the arguments what ChatGPT gives, what might be a good slogan, yeah, what might be a good idea, and then try it out. So produce your own video. So, and I think these are ways, yeah, to really merge the use of ChatGPT or AI in general with your kind of own work. Yeah. So, which means you have now more ideas, yeah, and you don't have to worry so much about the text. So you have a text selection, then you can discuss with your colleagues, yeah, which of the slogans, which of the text is the best, and then can we rephrase it, yeah. And then I really got in this course very, very funny videos from students, yeah, really cool advertising ads what they produced, yeah. And one of these I really thought we should send to one of the companies because they might willing to use it, yeah.
So Ali, how do you see the topic of academic integrity covered at a constructor university in the light of AI?
Well, maybe I'm not the best person to answer this on behalf of the university. Again, I think my role entails on pushing the boundaries in certain levels. I can obviously personally comment my view on it, and I think so at Construction University we are very forward thinking, and it's a claim, and we like to back it up to a lot of levels. The academic integrity, I know in the last 2 years at least, since AI and ChatGPT have been very heavily used by students. We have had professors and the operations side send out feedback forms, sit down with the students to try and understand gaps and areas we can work together on. So my personal view, I think, at Construction University is they have a very very liberal approach to it, and that's really important going forward in education, and also for students to be involved into the discussion. This has changed the paradigm a bit as well. It's always the case, you know, you'd have had feedback forms at the end of the year and whatnot, but this time it was actively pursued and actively engaged, and I think this is important important aspect to understand. Okay, also to educate the students what academic integrity is. I don't really think universities ever sit down with students and tell them, we tell them they need to cite, we teach them how to what plagiarism is and the consequences of it. We never really tell them why, you know, what again, you know, we never really went to the fundamentals of it as and that is something I think institutes need to do a lot more of in general, to really sit down with the student, like, okay, we have this process XYZ in place because these are the certain consequences. What do you guys think about it, right? Or what would your approach be if you had to do it? And there's this more inclusive approach where you're facilitating learning rather than teaching only, and involving the students allows not only them to understand academic integrity, but for us, from an operation, like an academic perspective, to know, do they even get it? Are we speaking a different language? You know, I think at the end of the day, humans, when they understand something, they like to work with it. But if they don't understand something, they're going to try and rebel and go around it. So that's really my 2 cents. I think in general, more institutions should take that approach to involve students in this conversation on what academic integrity is, where we draw the lines, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, and why do we do it, right? We know kids grow up always asking the why questions, and at some point in life we just stop saying that. And when we stop saying that, we realize, oh my God, there's so many problems. Our curiosity is lost, and then creativity is gone, and original thinking is gone because we're not learning, we're not curious to learn anymore. And that needs to happen in general. I think throughout different institutions I've been involved with at some level, we, like I said, have taken a more proactive level approach to try and include them.
Yeah, so as a follow-up question, and I will start with Ali and then go to Alexander. I think we invited both of you because you're very much, you know, pushing those boundaries accepting that AI is here to stay. What would you like to see from your institutions in regards to embracing that and adjusting policies like academic integrity, that it's more about acceptance and engaging, and that students feel that they are in the correct way be able to use AI rather than this hard policing and really pushing back on it?
So yeah, I would continue from the last point. Is firstly inclusivity. I'd love to see more inclusivity where we bring students into the board meetings where we're discussing academic integrity, where we're discussing where we start and stop the use of AI. This will really change how we develop. We need to co-create education. We need to facilitate the learning experience. I think focus has been so long in rather we need to teach. Teaching is important, but I think Gen Z, and I did my whole dissertation on it, to do a paper about Gen Z and the way they learn and their experience and their values. There's a very different generation. It's a very different generation because they grew up with AI, they had the COVID experience, they grew up with technology, and for them, calculators and Google is accessible on their phone. They don't understand it the same way the previous generation would have, who are now running the universities. I'd like to see more of that, bringing these students in, understanding where they think from, do a very, very proactive approach of building these policies, maybe together with them, not having them in mind, but rather putting them, because if we don't look at users, I'm before I joined higher ed and universities, I worked with higher ed as an entrepreneur. I built a company where I gamified education for teenagers. So I worked from a business perspective, and we used to look at our students as users. And what do we do with users? We interview them, right? We listen to them and we take feedback, and then we develop things they need, right? We focus on the human aspect of it. Education has not been like that. It's been, okay, we know the way to teach and we're going to teach it. But when was the last time we sat down with our student and asked, hey, how would you like to learn? Or how would you like to approach this? And I think that is really important, especially with AI now, because it doesn't affect not just now, because this 1 or 2 years, it's going to change the next 20, 30 years of education and the way the next generation grows up and their kids grow up in the world, and how that is utilized. It's also going to change the way technology and world develops. And we need to think of that. It's got such a tremendous effect. So why don't we look at our students as users of our policies, of the way we adapt and use AI and what academic integrity means? Sit down with them and interview them as we would as any other business would. Because we wouldn't be using Zoom if it did not fulfill all the requirements. So why do students still, why are they still forced to pay so much money to go to universities and then be told to do certain things in a certain way that don't even align with how they learn or how they analyze information? Gen Z does it very differently. Gen Z is more proactive. Gen Z likes to execute stuff. They're more hands-on. So why don't we allow that to happen? Why don't we include them in the conversation? And this is something I'd like to see more of. There's the shift in education, not to look at students just as students, but rather users of the learning experience and to co-create with them. Just as we would in any business that is successful and that makes impact. And impact comes from co-creation, community building. And that is a shift that would actually, I think, change the way our institution and many other I know work and the way we engage students for the future.
Journey to you, Alex. How?
Yes, so when we think about academic integrity, so we talk about the honesty, the trust, also fairness, respect, and responsibility, also to very clear about what you're doing. And this is for students as well as for the lecturers, and for any academic staff, any research faculty, any administrative staff as well. So, and I think in order to uphold quality, have a high level of quality, I think we should encourage questioning curiosity among students. It's not just about passing the exam, yeah, just hand something in to pass the exam. So we should go away from this. So encourage question, curiosity, yeah, discuss about, yeah, promote probably diverse perspective, yeah, and also probably also having more critical thinking, yeah. So not just taking everything what you read in papers immediately for granted, yeah. Start to discuss about papers more. So I would like to bring us more on a level on a academic discussion. And I always tell my students, your paper doesn't has to have a solution to it. So I'm already happy when at the end of the paper, when you write, there's so much on this topic, yeah, I cannot come to a final conclusion, yeah. I said, this is already a conclusion that you cannot have a final conclusion. So because academic research is always that we have, that we just have a little piece of the current state of knowledge, yeah, and this helps us to go a little bit further. So this is also why some people can create much more BS, yeah, than academics can actually disprove the whole life, yeah. So because we go in tiny steps, and this is also what we have to tell students. Research is a serious topic, and when you decide to do an academic degree at a university, no matter, yeah, if you study this or that, yeah, it's about that you want to enrich your knowledge, yeah, and you want to do this in a proper way, yeah, and it's not by faking through it. So some might have the kind of thing, I just want to get there through as easy as possible, yeah. But I think this is the kind of critical thinking that even when you think, I want to get through there as easy as possible, I want to do this like really with honest, and I want to be respectful also to other research. And I think this is something I would like to see more in our kind of academic landscape, yeah, to discuss about critical thinking, to discuss about more about knowledge which is already there, how to use it, yeah, and just to be fair to each others, yeah. And of course, using just ChatGPT for a seminar paper is just not fair, because you might do ghostwriting, you might actually do plagiarism, and it's not your idea. So, and that's actually the kind of, it's not honest and it's not fair towards others. I think once we get this into our mindset, yeah, then we can really use it in a very productive, very efficient way, and we might have a lot of fun with that together and a lot of discussions, and it probably might really supercharge our kind of discussions, development, knowledge base, yeah, probably similar supercharging as the book printing did originally, yeah.
Yeah. And then I would like to open our next and last poll to ask the audience, and maybe just a little bit more of a specific question, Alexander, to you. If your institution has adjusted academic integrity policies to reflect the impact of AI, and therefore have they included, maybe for you, Alex, that a certain level of the use of AI is acceptable?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, so of course we look into so in the same way as we look at plagiarism. So we look at plagiarism using, of course, scanning. So for like turn it in, and then on turn it in we can see, okay, what is from other sources, yeah. And of course, as a lecturer, I also know how to use it, yeah. So not everything which is a kind of red flag at turn it in is immediately a kind of plagiarism. It probably means it didn't show up the reference properly, or probably the reference hasn't been done correctly. Yeah? Sometimes it's just common knowledge. What you say, this is not plagiarism. Yeah, it's written a million times. You can write that. Yeah. So in the same way, we also go ahead with AI. So we say a certain percentage, yeah, is okay, especially if it's not a complete full page written by AI, but a synthesis and a kind of AI detector that you can say, well, this is like using rephrasing. This was done for brushing up your grammar. Yeah? This was done to brushing up your language. Yeah. And then this is a certain percentage where we say, yes, it's okay. So we had in the earlier days when we started, when ChatGPT came up, we said 0. Yeah. So it has to be a kind of 0%. Yeah. Otherwise your papers fail. So now, because seeing, it's a little bit too strict, and also AI detectors, yeah, might detect some things which is just a very structured approach, but not necessarily now really written by AI. So we say, okay, a certain percentage is accepted, and in addition to that, we ask students that they will add the kind of declaration for what purpose they use ChatGPT. So, for example, when I have a thesis and a student conducts interviews, and I said, well, I use ChatGPT to sort my interviews, to find codes, to find themes, and to basically do things what other softwares can do as well, or help me in the analysis, help me in comparison, and then be very transparent. So in the appendix, you would tell us, this is the tool I used, this is how I used it, but then of course don't copy paste just everything what it tells you, still use your own brain as well. So this is the kind of transparency where I think we are already going, and where we probably should go as a whole community as well.
Yeah. To round up, because we're getting towards the end, we do have a couple of questions coming in as well. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the Q&A box. We should have a little bit of time. I do want to ask you both one last question. We talked about institution, we talked about the students, but we see across faculty members very different levels of acceptance of AI. So what are you, or what is your institution doing to actually bring the educational staff kind of to one level of knowledge and acceptance of AI and AI tools? Let's start with Ali.
Right, it's a very good question, because the disparity between, I think, different levels of access and different ways professors are using it, but firstly causes confusion between students. Why is my professor in my class it's integrating more than others? So for us, having an open dialogue with the academia, and it's very important. And I personally actively engage with them on so many levels, trying to understand what they're doing already, what they're not doing, what their fears are, and it's always addressing the concerns, because I think at some level they all understand the importance of it and the need of it. But it's the concerns on, okay, what happens if students are copying and they're getting 1.0 GPA grades, and we realize afterward, like, this is going to come back to me because I was maybe not proactive enough. So should I just limit it? And that fear is very, very real. And addressing those has been rather helpful collectively, not in a silo. The conversations are not happening in silo, and this is something we are doing and need to do also a lot more with the professors throughout to make it more accessible. And one thing I'd like to add, through it, we found several different ways that one professor was using AI, and the others could definitely utilize, and it was not just in the results. And it's quite interesting how that was happening. So we opened the conversation up, and one of the things that I'm personally currently doing is creating a repository of different ways AI is being used in different classes, then different engagement and the results of that, and making it public, hopefully for the whole university and everyone who can access it and needs to view exactly what is happening behind the scenes in the classroom and the results of that. And I think because us academics are very data driven and reading numbers, and in fact, that would be a very neat approach. I hope that it will open up eyes and it will allow others to also adapt some of those ways. Some professors doing it really well, and maybe avoid some of the ways they think would lead to some kind of issue in the future. But having a dialogue, which is not in a silo, but rather collectively, is one way to really open it up and to share what the learning is, and not to keep it within the ideas that we have.
And how's that for you, Alex? What are you or your institution doing to have this open dialogue?
Yes, I also link you to the sharing, what Ali just said. Yeah, so sharing is caring. And of course, so I think sharing knowledge. Yeah, and so of course we have regular calibration meetings, amongst the lecturers, and the academic staff, where we discuss exactly these topics. And then of course from all areas, all my colleagues have different ideas. They have experimented with it. They used it in the classroom, they used it in research. I think it's really important to share this kind of knowledge, yeah. Plus, of course, which is also great, yeah. For example, our discussion today, but also to exchange with other colleagues from other universities at conferences, discussing about that, yeah. Having this kind of meetings and to see how can it be used, yeah. And I participated in the last few months at many kind of online meetings, yeah, with different universities together, where we discussed exactly these things. So how to use it, how are you doing it? Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea. I like what I hear about here. Ali last time brought me a great idea as well. Yeah. Where you mentioned about the list of prompts you're using. Yeah. And then you experiment with these. So I think these are all things to do. So I think it's a kind of regular exchange also, and to have this kind of calibration meetings also with your colleagues. Yeah. To discuss what is our standard. So what is our kind of understanding for academic integrity? What is, so for example, is it now permitted that you use ChatGPT to, let's say, to sort your interviews, yeah, and to sort your interview data? Is it permitted that you make a table? Or no, interview data should be done by a different software. You should do it you should do it yourself, yeah. But these are all things here to discuss, and of course there are different points of view. And I think there's also a kind of well, of course diversity, and of course also diverse opinions and knowledges, yeah, can just enrich us and bring us on this kind of discussion. So I think regular exchange, regular discussions, yeah, this is actually what we're already doing, and I think we're getting step by step. We implement improvements, yeah, step by step. We have new ideas to do that. So I think it's a very dynamic development. It's probably not the one process, the one regulation which we can write in stone by the end of the year. I think it's really like having this kind of, this is the current regulation, and then we see how this continues further.
Yeah, thank you very much. Before we go into Q&A, and kind of what we just discussed as well about sharing information, joining webinars, hearing from other institutions as well, I want to turn it to the audience one last time, and put in the chat, thinking about an hour back when you joined this webinar, and thinking about the conversations we've just had. If your view on AI and using AI tools in the classroom, within the institution, if that has changed based on this conversation, based on the examples and experience that Alexander and Ali has shared. I do have a couple of questions. So there is a question: are there additional challenges for entire online courses compared to campus or blended hybrid? I don't know if one of you has more experience, want to put something
Yeah,
so
if the question's concerning more on academic integrity, I don't think online and in person has changed much, because what students do, most of the work is done kind of outside classroom, or they're writing theses and papers. But in terms of learning experience, since the conversation is also around AI, like you mentioned, one of the things we're trying and testing out at the moment is with our LLM for online students. We try and look out for engagement levels, and it's a really neat tool for practicing. But it kind of gives you like analytics for professors on how engaged students are online, who is doing well, or who maybe raise an eyebrow at a certain question, and maybe we should come back to that. So that is what it's obviously coming a lot from my personal past experience, whereas building education products for young kids, where I realized you have to really personalize it. So for online, it's the big difference is maybe more in the teaching environment. AI has been very useful in that area, because it has helped to all personalize it for these students. One of the other things that I do within entrepreneurial teaching is we use AI for online and also in person, encourage students to use AI almost as a mentor. So we build personas, and we use it as a mentor to help guide them build their personal learning journeys. So we feed in their data, help them understand how they can utilize it to build a persona out of them, and then AI works with them. And that was something for the online audience, for the online students, it helped a lot. And that's stepping away a bit from the academic integrity, but I think it's very important to mention that AI is very useful in so many different ways. And again, as Adam said, sharing is caring. I have like a bunch of other ways that we use it, and would love to kind of share it all here, so you guys can implement it as well and change, make a little impact and ripple in the institute. But this one mention, I think, with online and in-person teaching is AI is very helpful to help personalize the journey for online audience, as well as in person, but more focused on online.
Alex, do you have anything you would like to add to that?
Well, yeah, definitely. So I find hybrid is always a kind of special challenge. So I think because you have, well, basically there are two modes, yeah. So when you are in classroom, yeah, so very traditional, yeah, and then you can use all your, I would say, your whole collection of tools, yeah, of pedagogical tools you can use, yeah, like having group discussion and split up in groups, do this, make a quick in-class presentation, yeah, and so all these things work quite well when you're all in the classroom. When you're all online, yeah, you can use different tools then, because then you have breakout sessions, but you can basically go the same line because everyone is online, and then you can rely on like a whiteboard, yeah, like a shared document, yeah, and a kind of shared area where you draw something, where you discuss something, and you can send them into breakout sessions. The big challenge, what I experience myself, is if it's hybrid. So I'm in the classroom, I have a few students in the classroom, and a few students are online. Yeah, and then I have the feeling I'm either losing the one group or the other group at one point, yeah, because then students, of course, who are online, they start writing something in the chat, and then I have to see what's in the chat, yeah, and then, of course, once I look in the chat and I look at this, I will lose the rest of the classroom, yeah. And when I speak to the classroom and say, well, we now do some group work, then I have to address the online students to do also some group work. So which means it's a kind of double work, yeah. So I think for hybrid, yeah, what I try not to have hybrid. So I'm happy to have online or in classroom, yeah, but I really try to have it like the one mode or the other mode, because then I think it's the most productive one. If there is a hybrid, if we have to do a hybrid, yeah, then I try to have one of the students to be a moderator, so that we really have someone looking after the online area and collecting perhaps the chats, and then we have like this kind of clear settings that we say, okay, now this is now for the next 10 minutes like a kickoff meeting for everyone, and I will like do classical input lecturing, and then we look in if there are any questions in the chat. I will address the classroom first, then we do the chat, and then we do this. But you have this kind of double work. So I think for hybrid, you definitely have to plan in more time. And I think when everyone is in the classroom or everyone is online, yeah, then it makes things really easier, yeah.
Yeah. We're running a little bit out of time for questions, so we might not be able to cover everything. There has been a question asked, it's a little bit question statement that I really would like to point out, because we talked a little bit about ChatGPT being a study buddy, being a mentor. And Philippe is saying, would it be easy to start talking about extended intelligence instead of artificial intelligence? So kind of a one-liner, maybe first Alex, then Ali. Do we agree? Do we disagree?
I definitely like the phrase extended intelligence, yeah, like your additional hands, yeah. So definitely, it's an extended intelligence, perhaps also an extended memory, an extended brain, yeah. My external hard disk drive, perhaps, yeah.
Ali, anything to add or complete agreement?
I love it. I love it. It's a really lovely way to look at it. You know, humans love a good story, and words matter. And when we suppose use stuff like AI and ChatGPT, and it can be scary, extended intelligence is a wonderful way to look at it as someone that accompanies you on the journey. And I think personally, for me and the work that I'm trying to do is to change and make education more human focused and impact based. Such things are really important. And there's a mentor, or it's a study buddy, or we use it for persona or simulation guidance. So great comment, Philippe. Really appreciate that. It's got a lot of flow of things going in my head now and connect a couple of dots for me. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mr. Please, can you get the proper reference for us for extended intelligence, that we're using this in the full academic integrity with honesty, trust, fairness, and respect towards the person who came up with the idea. Thank you very much for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to thank the audience for their attendance, but also the participation. There's been a lot of activity in the chat and Q&A. Special thank you to Alexander and Ali for joining me in this conversation, but also OEB for being so kind to host us. I do really hope that the conversation doesn't stop here. Like I said, there's been a lot of activity in the chat. I know that Ali and Alexander over the past couple of weeks have really connected. So I think we're all on LinkedIn. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to connect with myself or with Alexander or Ali. And hopefully this conversation and this discussion can continue. As like we mentioned a couple of times, AI is here to stay. We're still figuring things out on how to implement it, whether that's in an office or in an educational institute. So please feel free to have this conversation to continue. And thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you very much, Dirk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would love to continue the conversation. If anyone wants to talk, you can always reach out to me. I'm very accessible via LinkedIn. And Alexander would love to take this offline as well. I think there's a lot to discuss and lovely hearing your thoughts. So thank you, Krista, for moderating and OEB for hosting us, and Catherine.
Thank you very much also for myself for organizing it. Very interesting. Yeah, and Ali, we definitely will discuss further. And I'm also happy with any one of the participants. Please connect on LinkedIn, yeah, and really open to discuss this further and to get also new inputs for everyone, and especially extended intelligence. I really like this idea very much. Yeah, and this is probably a phrase we might use in the future as well more. Yeah, thank you.